3, 4 and 5.
Mr Chairman.
The Honourable Leanne Dalzell.
Mr Chairman, I'm keen to take a call here in part one because I just wanted to perhaps get on record what was what may be not apparent to people that have been listening into the debate. I mean, I know that one person came down to the House thinking that there was a debate on Banks and it was Banks's announcement of his bid for ex-party candidacy in Epsom, but they were disappointed to find out that it was actually about the Westpac Banking Corporation, so there you go. But now my understanding in part one we've got the definitions, and I think that helps us clarify exactly who we're talking about. We've got Westpac Banking Corporation, meaning the corporation incorporated in New South Wales, Australia under the Corporations Act 2001 of the Commonwealth of Australia. But what they operate in New Zealand is a branch. So they call themselves Westpac Banking Corporation New Zealand. And it is that branch that operates at the moment the institutional banking arm of Westpac. And it is that is being transferred to the organisation known as Westpac New Zealand, which is Westpac New Zealand Limited, incorporated in New Zealand under our Companies Act. And it's that distinction that I think people have kind of missed out on. And I was interrupted by a member opposite while I was trying to traverse this issue earlier on, but I just want to see if I've got it right. Because this is what I don't understand, and that is why was the 2006 legislation that provided for the retail arm to be transferred from the branch to Westpac New Zealand, why was that legislation so narrow in its ambit that it only allowed for a one-off regulatory intervention to transfer the assets? And it seemed to me that if they could have done that for a further set of assets and liabilities, then we wouldn't be here debating this bill. We would have just simply had a regulation passed and that particular transfer would have occurred. So I don't know whether the member in the chair has got some knowledge of the history of this, and I'm very mindful of the fact that I think it was the Honourable Marion Hobbs who was the person whose name the 2006 legislation was in. Absolutely correct. And I think that at the time we had the general discussion there as to why the legislation was required, but I don't know that we ever had the debate in the context of that legislation as to whether a further transfer of assets and liabilities would require another entire piece of legislation to be referred to Select Committee and obviously go through the process that it went through. I've had the benefit, even though I didn't serve on the Select Committee, of having in front of me Westpac's submission to the Finance and Expenditure Select Committee, and of course it's been very instructive. We've had a number of comments made around tax liabilities, and the issues that I've sort of looked at here were that the Westpac, as I understand it, approached the Inland Revenue Department, and I don't know whether the Select Committee actually looked at this and got independent advice from the Inland Revenue Department on this, but actually sought to ensure tax neutrality as part of the seamless transition from one to the other. So perhaps the member might like to put that on the record, since the issue of tax liability has been raised in this respect. And the second issue that I think has been raised in this House is in respect to the nature of the legislative intervention that is required. So again, I think if the member can provide us with a little bit of background as to why, I mean, if there are further transfers to happen in the future, does that mean that there has to be another piece of legislation? I mean, is this going to have to be the practice the whole time any of the strategic banks, any time that they get into a situation where a portion of their branch activities or their branch activities still owned and operated by their parent company fall within the ambit of the new rules that have been set by the Reserve Bank with respect to local incorporation? I mean, I think they're fair questions to put to the member in the chair. I think that it's time that he contributed to the debate on part one, and I think that they're two very good questions that he perhaps could respond to and generate some enthusiasm into this debate.
Stuart.